This is Vicinity 95.3 FM, Ikeji, Ijesha. The time is 12 o'clock. I am Boluwatife, Ajayi, with Global News. First, the headlines. President Tinubu says increase in petrol pump price necessary for Nigeria's growth. UN mission calls for peacekeeping force in Sudan. And former American Republican Vice President throws weight behind Democrat presidential hopeful. Now the news in full. President Bola Tinubu says the increase in petrol pump price by Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) was a bold step and unplanned decision but necessary for Nigeria's growth. Tinubu made the remark at a meeting on Friday with Nigerians in Beijing, China, to round off his engagement in the country. He pointed that the increase in petrol pump price and other reforms by his administration are part of an overall strategy to set Nigeria on the path of economic development. President Tinubu added that he is committed to replicating China's infrastructure. Meanwhile, Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) has announced it will start lifting Dangote refinery petrol from September 15. The executive vice president of downstream NNPCL, Adedapo Segun, made this public while speaking in an interview on national television, said it is the timeline provided by the Lagos-based refinery Dangote. This comes as petrol scarcity lingers. Segun stressed that Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) is collaborating with marketers to ensure that filling stations open early, close late to maintain adequate fuel supply to meet the needs of Nigerians. The National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) says some states may witness flooding following the possible overflow of the River Niger and Benue. We hear the states that are likely to witness flooding include Benue, Kogi, Anambra, Delta, Imo, Rivers, and Bayelsa. NEMA, in a release Friday, explained that the notice was to enable the local government and communities to take action to mitigate the risk of flooding. Some of the actions expected to be taken include immediate construction of flood barriers and moving people from flood plains to safe higher ground. Are you a point of sale, popularly referred to as POS operator? Then this story is for you. You have been reminded of the need to get your business officially registered or risk having it impounded by the Corporate Affairs Commission. The Commission, in a notice issued Friday, noted that the deadline for the mandatory registration expired Thursday. The CAC noted with concern that despite the proliferation of POS operators across the country, the level of compliance has been low. It warned that it would work closely with law enforcement agencies to ensure POS operators comply with the directive. Away from Nigeria, report says Algeria has begun its snap election. Over 23.4 million people are registered to vote within Algeria, while more than 865,000 Algerians living abroad have started casting their vote. President Abdel Majid Tebboune, Abdullahi Azani Cherif, and socialist Youssef Al-Chichi are competing. Voting will last till 7 p.m. today and may be extended by the election authority if necessary. The election is supervised by the Independent National Election Authority. The UN mission is calling for a peacekeeping force to protect civilians in Sudan. According to the UN report, the Sudanese Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) were responsible for attacks on civilians and had used torture and carried out arbitrary arrest. The UN mission chairman, Mohamed Chande Othman, called for immediate independent and impartial force to protect civilians. Civilians in Sudan are facing worsening famine, mass displacement, and disease after 17 months of war between the army and the RSF paramilitary. Meanwhile, the United Nations has called for a full investigation into the killing of a U.S.-Turkish woman in the occupied West Bank during a protest on Friday. We hear that the 26-year-old lady was shot dead by Israeli forces as she took part in a weekly protest against Jewish settlement expansion in the town of Beta near Nablus. Israel's military said it was digging into a report that a foreign national was killed as a result of shots fired in the area. The U.S. has also called for an investigation into the incident. Spokesman for the White House National Security Council, Sean Savett, said Washington was deeply disturbed by the tragic death of an American citizen. This is Vicinity 95.3 FM Ikeji, Ijesha. Global news will continue shortly. Now the rest of the news. Germany's Migration Agreement Commissioner Joachim Stamp says his country could make use of facilities funded by the UK to process some asylum seekers in Rwanda. However, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has another view on the issue which may prevent the idea from being pushed forward. The new UK government scrapped the Rwanda plan, which originated under the Conservatives and would have seen some asylum seekers sent to Germany. German ambassador to the UK, Miguel Berger, noted that there was no plan by the German government to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. Under the UK original plan, asylum seekers sent to Rwanda would not have been allowed to return to the UK. We hear Israeli forces have pulled out from Jenin City and its refugee camp in the occupied West Bank after a major 9-day operation there. The area considered a stronghold of militants was on the radar of the Israeli Defense Forces. At least 36 members of armed groups in the city were silenced by Israeli forces during the operations. The city of Tubas and Al-Farah refugee camp were also raided during the 9-day operation across the northern West Bank. Former U.S. Vice President and lifelong Republican Dick Cheney says he will throw his weight behind the Democrat Kamala Harris in November's presidential election. Cheney made this public in a statement. He noted that he had never seen an individual who is a greater threat to the Republic than Donald Trump, the current Republican candidate. The former vice president pointed out that Trump can never be trusted with power again, noting that as citizens there was a duty to defend the Constitution. Cheney joins a growing list of Republicans who have expressed concern about the candidacy of Donald Trump. Sir Keir Starmer will become the first British Prime Minister to visit the Republic of Ireland in 5 years. He is expected to begin the visit today, Saturday. We hear the trip will mark a new era of cooperation and friendship between Britain and Ireland. Starmer is billed to meet with his counterpart, Simon Harris, later today. Their full day of engagement in the Irish capital will be topped off with the Republic of Ireland playing against England at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Canadian and American investigators have grabbed a man who they accused of trying to enter the U.S. illegally. According to the investigator, the man Mohammed Khan, also known as Shazab Jadon, was on a mission to attack Jewish communities in New York City on behalf of the Islamic State group. We hear the suspect, a Pakistani national who lives in Toronto, was planning an assault time for the anniversary of the October 7th Hamas attack against Israel. He planned the attack with 2 people who he did not realize were undercover agents. The terrorist suspect is expected to appear in court in Montreal, Canada on the 13th of September. Now a bit of sport. A sport venue in Paris will be named after Ugandan Olympic runner Rebecca Cheptegei, who you will recall that the runner died Thursday after her ex-boyfriend allegedly set her on fire outside her home last Sunday. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo said dedicating a sport venue after the late runner was to immortalize her name. The Paris mayor told newsmen that the runner dazzled the spectators at the Olympic Games in the French capital, adding that Paris will not forget her. To end the global news, another look at the headlines. President Bola Tinubu said the increase in petrol pump price by Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) was a bold step and unplanned decision, but necessary for Nigeria's growth. We told you that the UN mission is calling for a peacekeeping force to protect civilians in Sudan. According to the UN report, the Sudanese Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) were responsible for attacks on civilians and had used torture and carried out arbitrary arrests. And lastly, you heard that former U.S. and lifelong Republican Vice President Dick Cheney said he would throw his weight behind the Democrat Kamala Harris in November's presidential election. And just before we go, the last line. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. That's global news. On behalf of the news editor Oluwafunke Obi Israel, I am Boluwatife Ajayi. Please stay tuned for news nationwide at 5 p.m. Many thanks for listening. Good afternoon.